William I faced many acts of resistance during his early years as King of England. However, none of these were successful. He was quick to act and brutal towards any threat to his position. In this pod, we'll look closely at one of the most notable actions towards resistors, the Harrying of the North, which took place between 1069 and 1070.
The main feature of the harrying was the destruction of personal property, including crops and livestock. This was done by William's men under his instructions. Many homes were burnt to the ground, and any who resisted this assault were attacked and killed. Many peasants and farmers died of starvation because of this tactic.
William's motives for this strategy are unclear, as no accurate record was kept. However, historians researching the event have identified several possibilities. Firstly, it may have been to bring an end to the many acts of rebellion he faced since being crowned King of England in 1066. He was determined to maintain his position and ensure stability. This was important as threats were both internal and external.
Secondly, the harrying may have been ordered as an act of revenge. William had allowed the Anglo-Saxon earls to retain their lands and titles. In return, he expected respect. This had failed to happen, and many of the earls, including Earl Morcar of Northumbria, had actively mounted rebellions against him. This had seen the loss of many loyal men and supporters. William was angered by this, and may well have sought revenge.
The third possible motive was to deter future rebellions by crushing any opposition thoroughly. William needed to show his strength and assert his authority. After all, weak leaders were always seen as targets, land was valuable, and many people desired the English crown. William had to act with supreme force if he hoped to deter future attempts at rebellion.
Some historians also believe that the harrying took place to ensure that raiding Vikings were unable to find anything of use. The north was heavily targeted by the Vikings. By laying the countryside to waste, there would be no resources for the Vikings to use. This would reduce the chance of their success and deter future attacks.
The harrying began in Yorkshire, where the greatest damage and suffering was caused. From there, it spread to Durham and Northumberland. In 1070, William continued the harrying in the northwest, assaulting Lancashire and Cheshire. It eventually came to an end at the Welsh border. In all, it largely focused upon the lands of Earl Edwin and Earl Morcar, two of the men who had revolted against him.
The impact of the harrying on local populations was catastrophic. In the short term, many lived in fear. If victims survived their encounters with the soldiers, they faced starvation. There was no support in place for those targeted, and most survivors starved to death. A chronicler of the time, Simeon of Durham, wrote in A History of the Kings that, because of this, there was so great a famine that men forced by hunger ate human flesh, that of horses, dogs, and cats. We can see the huge damage to property in the worth of areas, as recorded in the Domesday Book. For example, Headingley in Leeds fell in worth by 36 shillings, a huge amount of money at the time. Some places were simply regarded as waste, where they had once been villages.
The harrying of the north had the desired effect upon the population. The number of rebellions decreased and most of the English became compliant. However, there were still some acts of rebellion. For example, in the Isle of Ely, rebellions continued until 1071.